came to the conclusion that if young people had an understanding of identity and history and Black history, that would give them more confidence, self-esteem about who they were. So that's why I launched Every Generation. I got a small grant from the Millennium Commission, launched to develop a website. And on the website, I've taken on the website about a few years ago now. I plan to maybe get it back up again. But on the original website, I had case studies on how to trace a family tree. I profiled elders from the British generation about what they did, and then links to other websites. And in that time, there weren't that many Black British websites in the UK. I think there was Black Presence. There were about 3 or 4: Black Britain Online, Black Presence. There were loads of African American websites, but there was hardly any Black British websites I launched as well. So and then I've got a team of people to help me, to web designer, and then later on I recruited a researcher, Dr. Anthony Osborne, who then worked with me on the project on 100 Great Black Britons. So I was just putting my own money in on the World Wide Web and developing Black content, basically.
Great. And how long did sort of, well, it's still running, I guess. It's still it's up there, still happening?
In terms of?
Every Generation Media.
I still got the company name. I use the company name.
Yeah.
There. The website I took. The problem with the internet. When you're on the internet, people are hacking you all the time. For example, I've still 100 Great Black Britons website, which I launched in 2003, which I then I got it revamped about a few years ago because I relaunched the campaign again. The amount of money I've spent on people trying to hack into your website and move it to different firewalls, move it to different servers. It's just, it costs money to do all this kind of stuff as well. And the other thing also, which I got really frustrated about, that a lot of people were looking onto my Every Generation website, using the content and not even acknowledging where they got the content from. So I just felt, well, why am I putting all my ideas online? I mean, the idea is to share, and there's something wrong with sharing. But if people are using your information and not even having the courtesy to even acknowledge where the original source came from. So I stopped investing on the website, to be quite honest.
In 2003, you launched the successful sort of 100 Great Black Britons campaign, and it's amazing. I mean, we've talked about this a few years back when you did some work for us. I mean, can you please sort of explain, where that came from, please?
Yeah, very simple. The BBC in 2002 had a major campaign called 100 Great Britons. They were trying to find the greatest Britain of all time. And the reason why the BBC did this, because Britain was going through an identity crisis like it always does. You had the kind of massive campaign, the start of the SNP, what was happening in Wales around Plaid Cymru, the whole conversations around devolution. Even in the English regions, people in Cornwall were saying, well, we want to be separate from Britain. In the north of England, people were saying, well, we want to have our own powers to control our destiny. Why is everything done in Whitehall? Why can't it be done in Birmingham or Newcastle or Manchester? So there was a whole fraction of the union happening at that time. And then you had the early signs of Brexit through the political party Kilroy Silk, Veritas, which was a forerunner to UKIP. So all these things were happening around the fracturing of the union and identity, and also 9/11 happened as well. So, and especially with 9/11, there was all the whole debate, East against the West, all that kind of stuff. So the BBC had this idea: if we go into the annals of history, find the greatest Britain of all time, that will somehow bring the country back together again. And the reason why I know that is because Jane Root, who's a control of BBC Two, was her idea, and she told me about it when I launched my 100 Great Black Britons campaign. But the thing with the campaign the BBC did just simply reinforce the usual stereotypes. They were not on their top 100 on their 100 top list. I mean, this was a public campaign, by the way, so the BBC spent loads of money, advertising, promotion. A lot of people got engaged and nominated people, but the top 100, they had no Black or Asian people on that list. No, that's not true. The only person who did have that list of any ethnic description was Freddie Mercury, lead singer of Queen. of Farsi parents born in Zanzibar. That was about it. And then when the public voted for Winston Churchill as greatest of Britain, it kind of reinforced that mythology that it's only white people can be British. So I thought, hold on, no, we've been here since Roman times. So I launched a counter campaign again because I'd already invested money in doing my first website, Every Generation. I had a clear idea how the web worked. So I've got some other web designers, worked with black researchers and a whole range of people, and we launched an alternative website. And to be honest, if you asked me would it take off, I didn't think it would. I had no idea it would take off, but luckily, I had support at the time from the GLA when Ken Livingstone was mayor of London, and we launched at the GLA, and we did a joint press release, and that helped in getting the publicity. Within about 24 hours, the website had crashed. And we had to move it onto a different server because there was so much interest. And what I did was nothing new. I mean, all I did was looking at existing research that's been done about Black British historical figures. I just put it on one website. That's what I did. It wasn't we found some new people as part of the research work, but most of the people on there were well known already. So it was the first time that the public, a lot of white people, didn't realise there has been this black presence going back from Roman times from Septimus Severus to Miss Dynamite. That was a kind of the timeline. Because she was quite big then, wasn't she, Miss Dynamite? So,
sure. And she got an amazing brother, hasn't she?
She got two amazing brothers actually.
Yeah, true. Excuse me. Respect.
And actually, one of the brothers did the audio for the 100 Great Black Britons book, which came out in 2020.
Excellent. No, it's good. No, I mean, as you say, I just think, as you say, it wasn't anything new, but just that collection, that anthology, just bring them together. It's classic. You must have been so pleased with it. You must have been so happy.
I mean, the impact of the campaign was important because Mary Seacole was voted greatest Black Briton of all time. That inspired a number of nurses to start raising money for the Mary Seacole statue.
Yeah.
But also importantly, she was included for the first time in the national curriculum in 2007, along with Equiano. And that was a result of the campaign because it helped to publicise that there are black historical figures. As you know, the curriculum is very focused around the African American history and civil rights movement. But we have our own history of civil rights here too.
Indeed. In May 2018, following an earlier campaign for Windrush Day, and I think there was a 2013 sort of petition to the British government. So you relaunched the petition asking the Prime Minister to recognise the 22nd of June as a national day to commemorate and celebrate migration and migrant communities in Britain. When did you first have this idea of a National Windrush Day, Patrick?
Well, the
original Where did that come from?
Well, the original idea of Windrush Day came from late Sam King. He's the founder of Windrush Day, working with Arthur Taunton. But when I made my film A Charmed Life in 2009, I wrote an article in the Guardian newspaper like the following year, and said, wouldn't it be fantastic if we had a National Windrush Day to celebrate the Windrush generation and migration history? And when I wrote the article in the Guardian, which is still online, by the way, it's still there, I got approached by various people saying, that's a fantastic idea. Why don't we campaign for a National Windrush Day? And then we formally launched a campaign in 2013, working with a whole range of organisations, British Futures, Operation Black Vote, Runnymede Trust. They got involved, lots of churches got involved. And then every year we just kept organising events in Windrush Square in Brixton, where did petitions, early day motions in Parliament, letters in the Times newspaper. But we didn't get much traction until 2018 when we had the Windrush scandal. And that's when people realised that this was an important part of British history because of the way that the Windrush generation was treated, basically.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, I mean, and obviously what the government sort of announced is there was going to be this grant. They were going to, so they offered £500,000 to recognise and honour the contribution of the Windrush generation. I mean, what's the sort of perception of that grant? How has that been received?
Well, a lot of people, the grants I mean, a lot of people are happy because it's number one, a small amount of money, and number
Small.
two, it's not helping those grassroots groups and communities. Lots of, I'd say half that money goes towards local authorities, which is fine, but making the pot bit bigger, basically. I think personally it should have been about £2 million fund to do that kind of work,
Yeah.
as opposed to 500,000. But maybe
Yeah.
with the new government, who knows, it might change.
Let's talk immigration policy. 1962, 1968, 1971, the amendment in 1971, and then in 1981, and then in 2010, the then Home Secretary, Theresa May, launched her hostile environment, vote with your policy to curb the entry into Britain of what was termed bogus asylum seekers, illegal immigrants, followed by the enactment of the Immigration Act of 2014. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on where this came from, the impact it is having on our communities, and what hope there is of ever being satisfactorily resolved. What's
Yeah.
what's you know
Well,
what's your take?
the genealogy of these immigration acts goes back to Enoch Powell again. When he wrote his speech in 1968, his speech has inspired at least 2 to 3 generations of MPs across all political parties: Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, DUP, you name it. They've inspired all these politicians with the fear factor of all these black and brown people coming into Britain. We need to control our borders. So this fear factor that's the reason why we had Brexit. That fear factor is there right now as we talk about the current situation as we approach a general election, and all the additional immigration laws over the last 3 years that's been added, and the whole Soft-Brown Rwanda policy is about that fear factor that is still there. So really, the hostile environment and the legislation it's all, we all know it's racist. It has a detrimental impact. And instead of looking at the positive contribution of migration, we always see migration as a negative. And if all the migrants left Britain tomorrow, this country would just collapse. NHS would collapse, transport systems would collapse, the financial markets would collapse, everywhere would collapse. What more can we say?
Uh-huh. Okay, and I think it's succinct, really. It broke my heart. I remember seeing the BBC sort of film In Limbo. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, yes, Anti Prime, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that didn't do what the recent ITV film did for the GPO postmasters, didn't it? Unfortunately, there wasn't that. Do you know what I'm saying there? I know
It's a different kind of concept because
isn't it?
there were other documentaries done by the post office scandal. Because
Yeah,
people have been campaigning for 20 years for the post office.
there you go.
And remember, when I was involved in the whole campaigning back in 2018, we exposed the scandal. Obviously, the government have not delivered. That's a different story.
Yeah,
When Anthony's documentary his life was made about his life, that reinforced the need for the justice, which still needs to be sorted out around a compensation scheme
true,
as well.
true.
So it's difficult it's easy to compare. Well, Mr. Bates had an impact, but Mr. Bates had been campaigning for 20 odd years, along with
There
other
you
people.
go. Respect.
So
Yeah.
You have to recognise that timeline compared to the Windrush scandal timeline. If you do something around the campaigning.
That's very objective. That is. Thank you very much. What can people? I was going to say, what can people do in regards to sort of Windrush and the whole scandal thing?
To conclude, I'm working with a whole range of organisations. We're developing a Windrush manifesto, which is about how a future government should right the wrongs of the scandal, around status, compensation, support for mental health and well-being for those victims that's been traumatised by the scandal and the hostile environment policy. So I'll definitely keep you informed about that. And then once we've developed the manifesto, we want to share that. We want people, when you have prospective candidates knocking on your door, you can say, what have you done for Windrush? Here are some key demands. If you want my vote, are you going to support, are you going to help get rid of the scandal? And the justice for the Windrush generation.
Patrick, thank you very so much. You've been very generous with your time. I hope that wasn't too painful. I really enjoyed it. And let's keep in touch.
No, absolutely. And keep up the good work in Lincolnshire as well. I know that you've been working with Con McFarland, and that's great as well.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
great.
they're good.
Just keep up.
They're
It's
good.
important. I mean, people always think about the big cities, about Windward, but actually it's about the rural areas and other parts of the country that need to know this history and to be aware of this too. So just want to take my hat off to you as well.
Thank you very much.